Good evening. It is Monday, August 21st, 2023. This is Jason Horak reporting on the ongoing adventures of the Dodge Daytona electric vehicle. What we have here on the counter are two instrument clusters from a 1988 Dodge Daytona on the left and a 1987 Dodge Daytona on the right. This left one is one of the digital clusters that were commonly found in the luxury models, and this is the analog cluster that was commonly found in the performance models. So let's go ahead and take a look in the garage at what's been going on with these units in my car. Okay, so another problem that I am working on and trying to resolve in the car is the instrument cluster, which for some reason has stopped working. So this is what happens when I turn on the car. So we get the dinging, all that kind of normal stuff, and you see the instrument cluster shows, hit the gauge select, we got the battery indicator, oil pressure, engine temperature, and the fuel. Well, that's all well and good, except we don't have, up in this section, we're supposed to have the speedometer, RPM gauge, signal, for like the turn signal indicator, all that good stuff. Nothing. So I did some research, and apparently these digital instrument clusters from back in the 80s were all fluorescent behind here. So like instead of like an LCD screen with some kind of light or like a bulb back there, they're actually fluorescent. And I guess the electronics give out over time and they just stop working. So I'm not really sure. That's way above my pay grade for electronics troubleshooting. But instrument cluster is not working, and I gotta fix it. So this particular instrument cluster actually came out of my 1988 Dodge Daytona Pacifica, which was a higher-end luxury trim line with leather seats and power everything and digital this, that, and the other. And I think those also had like the talking module that would tell you that your lights were on or your door was ajar and fun stuff like that in the speak and spell voice of the 80s. But anyway, that car I had originally purchased way back in the day as a just for the engine. And the engine, ironically, went into this car, this 1987 Dodge Daytona that I'm sitting in at this very moment. And that was because the engine in this car was blown, and when I bought it, it was blown. And so I had purchased the 88 Pacifica just for the engine. It was like $300 or something for the car. Had to drive it down from New Hampshire. Well, technically from Massachusetts. The guy was from New Hampshire that I bought it from. And anyway, that's a story documented in my blog as my I think first blog entry back in 2007 or something. But anyway, that's where this dashboard came from. And I had converted that car when it was just sitting in my backyard with no engine and no transmission, as I recall. And it was rusting away, and it was all rusty to start with, and so forth. So I figured, hey, that'd be a great project car to figure stuff out with. So I had taken it, put in all my brand new electric vehicle components, like the Soliton 1, the net gain Warp 9 motor, the transmission adapter, all that good stuff. I actually purchased the A555 transmission that's actually in this car right now. I bought it at that time to put in the 88 Pacifica. But anyway, it had the digital dash. I thought it was cool, and I really wanted to bring that over to this electric car when I moved all the other electric components over, like, again, the Soliton 1 and the net gain and stuff. But anyway, I ended up in 2011, I didn't have time, so the dashboard, or sorry, the instrument cluster that I had in the car at that particular time when I went to the EvCon 2011 was the original analog cluster that came with this car, because this car was the Shelby-Z performance package model with the upgraded suspension and, you know, possibly higher horsepower, I'm not sure, an 87, manual transmission, you know, stock. And I think that they had opted for the analog gauges back then with the needles and stuff because it was like more race car-y and stuff rather than the fancy digital dashes in the luxury model. But anyway, so that worked fine, but I kind of wanted the cool digital dash just because, hey, you know, electric car, digital dash just seemed to go together. So anyway, so the wiring for this is kind of a nightmare. Let me go ahead and reposition the camera and I will show you. So this is what the cavity looks like that goes behind the instrument cluster. And what it's got is these two wires that come out of the engine harness and are connected to various sensors and all that kind of stuff, including the speedometer, which is digital, and all that good stuff. So what was interesting is these little plugs in the end, these are actually the ones from the 1988 Dodge Daytona Pacifica that I clipped very carefully, and I put these little, I don't know what they're called, they're like a blade connector or spade connector maybe, to hook them up to the car, and kind of figured it out one by one which wire goes to which. And that was a heck of a project, but to make everything work, that's what it required. So the old instrument cluster that was in here, the analog one, had these kind of plugs on it. They're kind of like rounded sort of deals, you know, different number of pins, all that good stuff. And that's why you can see that some of these, you know, were never hooked up to anything, because this was something that was used in the digital dash, but was not used in the analog setup, or was not used in the 87 car. And again, these might have gone to some of the, like the voice assist, or not voice assist, but the voice modules and things. But anyway, so that was my solution. It actually worked pretty well and allowed me to then change it back and forth if I need to. So what I'm going to do tonight is wire in these guys, the round ones again, so that I can plug in the analog cluster that looks very similar to the original one. This is not the original one from this car. It's all kind of scuffed up and stuff, and the mileage is way wrong, because this car's instrument cluster said like 65,000 miles or something when I got it, but then again it was also seized up, so I don't know if that's accurate or not, or, you know, how long it had been off the road with a broken engine and stuff. But anyway, so this is what the cluster will look like, is like this. I'll probably change this plastic piece just to make it look nicer, not all scuffed up, but anyway, you can see that it connects with these like ring of round pins there and there, as opposed to the digital dash, which connected here with a black connector and then here with a white connector. And those, again, black and white connectors correspond to these black and white connectors here, and they're different width, so you can't screw them up when you're plugging them in kind of blind in behind. And it's kind of a similar concept with these guys. They have sort of a different keying type of thing with the way they're set up, and so they only go in to one side conveniently. And so when you're kind of flailing around behind it, you can hopefully find the pin and plug it in without being able to see. So that's kind of the idea here. And so we're going to take these guys and put them back to their original wires here. which should be pretty straightforward because all of the wire colors will match 1-to-1 since they're the ones that came out of this car. Just as an example, like here we have a sort of a pink one that goes to a gray one on this side. So it was sort of pink on this side and then it went to gray. And then on the other dongle, we're going to have one that will match up exactly instead. So anyway, I'm going to go through and document these just for my own reference in the future, in case I ever want to go back to a digital dash setup. I would like to know, which pins were which, and write it all down somehow. So that'll be fun. But I need to get this put in here because the car has to go out for an inspection, go to the shop, and it probably won't pass inspection if it doesn't have a speedometer. I'm honestly not sure if that's a requirement or not in New York State, but I kind of would rather have it working rather than not. So anyway, that's the plan. Wish me luck. Well, that was super exciting. So we now have the red one, which conveniently is on this cable here, and the gray one, which is on this cable here. But you'll notice several of these wires are not used. Now the solid blue, I know why that's not used, because that's actually the gas one that goes to the, the original fuel tank gas line that is now hooked up to this instead, which goes to my little sensor that I've got that kind of fakes how much gas is in there based on the state of charge of the pack. It's an approximation. But anyway, so that's why that one isn't hooked up for the blue. I have no idea why orange with a green stripe, the other blue and white striped one, or the black and green one. Can't tell if it's black with a green stripe or green with a black stripe. Similarly, if it's blue with a white stripe or white with a blue stripe. But either way, those are not used. There's a second blue and white one just like that that is hooked up, so I don't know if both of these are supposed to go in the same connector or what's going on. But anyway, I've used all the connectors that I actually had on the plug, so I don't know where these other ones are supposed to go, but that's okay. We're gonna plug it in and see what happens. Okay, well, here goes nothing. Hopefully it'll turn on. That's a good sign. We have a fasten seatbelt light. I saw some gauges move. We got some movement on that one. How are we doing with lights? Oh, that's good. Turn off the light here. We can see that the dimmer / headlight thing actually seems to have come on. Oh, that's cool. That's actually good. Looks pretty decent. So we have lights, we have that. Let's go ahead and put the car in neutral. Let's try spinning the motor a little bit and see if it gets an RPM reading. Wow, look at that. Alright, I'm cool with that. A little flap down at the bottom. That's very similar to the amount of interference that I would see on the digital dash before as well. So anyway, that's pretty cool. I'll have to actually go out and take a test drive to see if the speedometer works. But that's a good indication that maybe something's happening there. Let's try high beams. Yeah, high beam light. Left blinker. Right blinker. Hey, that's pretty cool. If I got the speedometer hooked up right, we are in business. The fuel gauge does show full, which is about right because that's what the old digital dash was showing. So cool. So let's see if I turn it off. If I just turn off the key, yep, the battery indicator drops. The fuel goes down to nothing. That's in the auxiliary position. And actually, that's just off with the headlights on still. Cool. All right, that's pretty awesome. If I was feeling super brave, I would try the parking brake, but I haven't tried that yet since the car has been sitting here, just to see if the idiot lights on the left light up for the, I wonder if I could just like touch it a little bit. Well, I'm not seeing a parking brake indicator, so there's that. But if that's the only thing that doesn't work, I will call it a win. So, all right, I'm going to go ahead and do a test drive and we'll see what happens. Well, the good news is that it works. The brake light actually came on as soon as I backed out of the driveway, so that's fun. And yeah, otherwise, the dashboard seems to be working just fine. We have no oil pressure and no temperature, but that makes sense since I don't actually have sensors for either of those things currently. I might do something for the temperature to the electric motor at some point, just because I think that might be fun. Who knows? But yeah, so anyway, that's all set. And I'll go ahead and get that screwed back in and we'll be ready to take it to the car shop tomorrow. The RPMs seem to be a bit high, and I think that's an issue with my RPM sensor itself. I think it's like too close to the pickup ring or something. It's causing it to be quite a bit higher than it should be, which was causing some issues with the Soliton. The Soliton was kind of lurching and stuff as it was cutting off in power because it thought the RPMs were just going crazy. But I was like in second gear, 25 miles an hour, and I was hitting, comfortably 55,000 RPMs according to, 5,500 RPM, rather, according to this gauge. And that was about what I was seeing on the program as well. So I think that sensor is just kind of needs some adjustment. But yeah, otherwise it's running reasonably well, and car's got a lot of power and seems to be doing pretty well. We've burnt 16 amp hours out of the pack since I resurrected it from the dead, and yeah, anyway, things are doing pretty well. So we're going to head and get this screwed back in, get the dashboard put back together, because I have an appointment first thing tomorrow morning for the New York State inspection and stuff, as I mentioned before. So fun.